What's up, y'all, and welcome back to Country Cast. Today, joining us here is a very special guest, Jake Worthington, who just dropped his self-titled debut album, and he's got a lot of buzz right now. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jake. It's great to have you on the channel,
Randy,
man.
brother, thank you for having us on y'all's channel, and thank y'all for sharing the new music.
Absolutely, it's a fantastic album, and one that's been long awaited by fans. And glad it's finally here. So I got to ask, to the listener who may have never heard you before, how would you describe your sound?
Texas honky tonk and country music.
Yep, I can say it's very rooted in the foundation of traditional country, and that's an exact definition of who you are and what your music is. Fantastic. How did you start writing songs and getting into country music?
Growing up, my grandfather, my daddy's daddy was a songwriter and singer, and he had a little studio in the house, behind the house in the yard, that he had, did producing people's local records and stuff like that. But I never had my hands too much into that stuff. He always played around Christmas, and that's really where I got an itch for a song. I blame it on him, but my mama's daddy, my peepaw, he's a veteran, a Vietnam vet, and he's a poet, so like my Christmas presents were yellow pages like these, of just their words, and it always was something that I it didn't come by naturally for me or anything like that. I do believe that with at least with country songs, there is a craft involved, but I've had so many great co-writers throughout my time of getting to write songs that have always been willing to share with me their process, and that's just kind of I've been trying to do it since I was but even before the voice stuff and all that, I was picking and grinning. But I'd have to say I wasn't writing real songs till I was early 20s.
So you got the blank paper and pencil fairly early on, though, as a Christmas gift, it seems.
Very much so.
And did you start writing at a really young age? I know you said your first song was later in life, but were you trying your hand at it?
I was, I back when we was 12, 13 years old, getting guitars with your buddies and stuff, I had wrote 2 or 3 different, songs, that wasn't ever nothing I hung my hat on, and I never claimed to be a songwriter either, because I felt like I didn't know how to do it, or I wasn't. It just took me a long time to figure out how to say what I wanted to.
Well, it paid off, man, because your music is definitely something that translates to folks, I think, and really hits home, which is what country music is. And that traditional sound and the way you sing, sets the tone for who you are, I think. And this album really reflects that. What was it like growing up for you?
Man, I had a pretty dang good childhood, I'd say. My mom and daddy, my daddy worked in the HVAC world, and before he got into that, it was, my daddy can do about anything, but my mama, she worked in child care, and she went to school later in life and worked at Patients Hospital out there in Pasadena, and then decided to work at a fabrication company out in Deer Park called Romco, and I had a little brother growing up. I feel like we were surrounded with a lot of friends and family growing up, but I ain't got nothing to complain about, and I guess as far as what it's like growing up, I'm still learning. I'm still trying to do it.
Ain't we all, man?
No kidding.
So did you play any sports or anything growing up, or were you more focused on music and trying to learn that craft, or was there something else?
I did sports. I played baseball and I played football and I did those things. But I did FFA. I was real big into that. So we was raising animals and stuff, and those were the things that I liked. The guitar was always there. It was almost like whenever those things run out, I had that guitar, and that was always the case. Looking back, I think I can't remember a time where I couldn't go lock myself in a room and turn on a record and just listen to it. And I still do it. I think that the thing about music is it's an always ever changing thing and a constantly growing thing. There ain't one right way to do it. I think it's just about trying, continuing to do it.
Yeah, that's for sure. So speaking of growing up, and we've talked a little bit about how you have more of a traditional sound. I got to ask, who are some of the musicians that influenced you? That's probably a loaded question, but if you could think of a few who really had an impact on you and shaping, how you've turned out and what you try to put forth in your music.
I'd really have to say anybody I got the chance to work with throughout these years. I've had many different groups of guys that have come on the road with me throughout the years that's at one time or another worked out during that time, and I think I've always been influenced by those people, and not just by their ability to play. So but I think I think Merle Haggard is a great starting point for anybody to really go dive off into, and the Strangers, go listen to. We got YouTube and stuff now. You can go see that stuff live, because you're never going to get to in person. Right. And there's so many. Clint Strong's one of my favorite guitar players. I'm a huge fan of the way he plays, and he was playing during the '80s and stuff like that, and a lot of jazz influence and stuff. But I was always influenced by Meat and Taters, and but there's certain echelons to abilities of playing, and I damn sure, I could tell you how much of that music I appreciate and love, but I can't play it. I give it hell. Willie Nelson's one of my favorite. He's one of my guitar heroes, and I love a lot of blues music growing up. A lot of stuff coming out of southern Louisiana was influential on me. B.B. King is one of my guitar heroes. Tab Benoit is one of my guitar heroes. But so many. It's just as far as like country artists go. The first voices that I heard and was told, like that's your bar is for lack of better terms. George Jones is the greatest country singer of all time, and then Merle Haggard is right there, and my grandpa, my daddy's daddy was the type of cat that were like, I'd be coming home or coming out to his place to visit or whatever, and play some new songs that I had been writing or learned. And he's the type of guy that, you all right, boy, but you ain't no Ray Price, And he was right. So a lot of that music, that's the inventor of the Texas Shuffle. There's guys that are out there right now like Jake Hooker and Jason Roberts that are independently putting music out, and those guys are incredible musicians. And I can hold a tight rope, but not like them boys can. Not with their instruments. So.
Well, I say it's a pretty close one though, because this album really it paints that picture too. I mean, it touches on a lot of different, I guess you could call it subgenres, and I think the whole Western swing, Texas shuffle, and all that is implemented throughout the new record too. So you got to give yourself some
Well,
credit,
you know
man.
what? I appreciate that, and you know, I look forward to the best part about all this stuff is I get to do it for the rest of my life. You know, or I always have been able to get to
Yeah.
do it for the rest of my life, but it's something else where to 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 have to be a part of something that folks are drawn to. You know, that's a new experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing I'm going to add to this and get your take on it. You mentioned George Jones, and we kind of touched on the artists that have influenced you. But one of my favorite songs off of your new album is the last track, "In Closing Time." I find that you have the sound of George Jones in there, and the way that you present that vocally. And what's interesting to me is Lefty Frizzell was a big idol to George, and then George obviously mimicked some of that and then created his own, and then now we have you. It's like a generational talent coming down the pipeline, all from Texas. And so I would like to know your take on how you vocally presented that song in the studio, and was that something on your mind when you were singing it that way, or
No,
was there any influence to that?
I think that homage is not paid on purpose, you know. And if my kind of, you know, the way I think is ain't nobody can sing like them boys, you know. They you know, I don't know, you know, when we wrote that song, I typically, I don't necessarily, I'm trying to figure out how to. I mean, the truth is we don't go in no writing room trying to sound like nobody, you know. But like,
Right.
to me, if what I'm doing with our work, and it reminds you or makes you feel familiar of somebody of that stature, man, that's the greatest compliment I could ever receive. And I wrote that song with Nick Walsh. And me and that boy was whiskey drinking buddies longer than we was co-writers. And, you know,
That's what make the write so great.
yeah, I'd have to say so. You know, we wrote into that song over the phone, and we started on the song early and started drinking earlier. You know, and you know, it's a you know, it's not a, it's just we both have it. It ain't like we haven't experienced the things going on in that song lyrically or musically, and it's just, I appreciate you bringing that song to the conversation.
Yeah, I stand by my compliment on that too. If there's anyone looking for that nostalgia or being taken back to that place and time, you reflected that 100%, and you paid homage without knowing that you did it, and it's just a fantastic track, man. And you're such a unique sound right now to bring back that traditional sound to the forefront, and I had to ask about it. So appreciate you
Hey, hell
talking
yeah,
about it.
man! Shit, I'm grateful for it.
When so you kind of touched on this too about how it took you a little while to really dive into writing the music and stuff, but when did you really have that epiphany, like you wanted to start to pursue music as a career?
I have to say, I was probably 17, 18 years old. You know, I did that boy stuff, and during that
Right.
time, you know, man, I didn't know, I knew what kind of music that I loved, and I knew what moved me, but you know, I had some red tape to jump over and lines to walk, and you know, that kind of stuff can really turn a guy off, you know, but I didn't have anything else,
Yeah.
you know. I damn sure, I looked at my situation like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. You know, once I eventually went back home and kind of settled in there, you know, I never ever thought that I was going to be able to get to do this stuff for a career, let alone a living, and I found that you could, and I damn sure didn't have no time and nothing else. And you know, I, we can talk all we want to about, you know, putting something down, and but with this music stuff, you know, with songs and picking guitar and singing and all that, you know, you can't turn off the 3 a.m. waking you up out of a dead sleep. Have to go do it, you know. And Bill Anderson told me that one time. You know, I got to write with Bill Anderson and Jordan Walker one day at the Sony
Wow.
Publishing Building about a year or so ago, and oh man, I was tickled over it. You know, I mean,
I bet so, man.
Bill Anderson, you know, and Jordan's a great writer as well, and but man, Bill got to talking about that. You know, he got to saying, you know, I hear people talk about, you know, giving it up and this and that. He said, but you know what? You know, you can't. He said exactly that. At 2 a.m. and you got something running through your head, and you can't close your eyes. You got to put it on paper. You can't turn that off. And it's just a part of who we are. And the fact that Bill Anderson ain't got to write no songs with me or nothing, you know. But this, to me, it's an inspiring thing to know that Bill Anderson is who he is, and has been doing this for as long as he has, and he still goes to the pub house to write with a new artist or with a new writer or anything like that. I think it's admirable.
Man, shout out to Bill for that. That's really cool. He's still doing that.
Oh yeah. No
Gotta
doubt.
respect it. And so you mentioned The Voice just now, and when you got started, a lot of country musicians have made their way onto that show. Not so many have won that show. You yourself were a runner-up in the season that you were on. I believe it was season 6.
That sounds right. It's
season 6, I believe. What was your experience like on that? I mean, especially hearing you talk about, you know, you weren't really sure, and you obviously have a different take, and what moves you. So I'm interested to hear what your experience was like.
Man, I went there. That was a, you know, back then, that, not to sound like, you know, it was almost 10 years ago, and being on TV mattered then. And, well, it's still, you know what I mean. You know, we didn't have, like,
right,
correct.
Other outlets.
And you know, that was kind of like a fly by the seat experience for me, you know, because it wasn't like I didn't have my stuff together to, you know, I wasn't prepared to when that was over with, to put a record out and to, you know, cross my T's and dot my I's and all that stuff, you know. But it was a crazy experience. You know, before that I had hardly flew on an airplane, you know.
Oh, wow.
You know, my mama was with me because I was underage, and you know, my parents put their life on hold during that. Well, I say that. The world kept turning, you know, don't get me wrong, but we're fortunate to have employers that supported us and supported them throughout that time. And, like, you know, I got to work with some incredible musicians because of The Voice. And you know, had I not been so green, maybe I'd have had a little more takeaway from the experience. But all in all, had I not done that, I would have never dove off into musicality the way that I have over the years, because it opened that door for me. It opened the door for me to be around clinical people and the lack thereof, you know. So you know, it was a cool thing, and you know, guys like me don't. Well, you know, at least that's what we're raised to believe. You know, we don't get those kind of opportunities, and I'm very glad that we did it. There's a lot of great memories made out of that.
Oh, I'm sure. I was going to ask how did it affect you, but you pretty much went into that. So after The Voice, I know you had 2 EPs released, self-titled first, I believe, and the second was Hell on a Highway, I believe. Hell of a Highway. Yeah, Hell on a Highway. Obviously, it's taken a few years to get to your now self-titled debut album. So what came, other than the 2 EPs, what kind of came after The Voice for you?
A lot of up and down. a lot of time under the radar, a lot of opportunities to mess up and to work, to learn and to work and to, really, if anything, it gave me that kind of freedom because I felt like, I cut them EPs with Rosewood Studios out of Tyler, Texas, and Greg Hunt was running it at the time, and Drew Hall was engineering underneath him, and those people, those guys turned into family very quickly, and now Drew Hall and Kerry run the studio in Tyler, and they're just incredible talents and incredible people. But after we put them EPs out, I kind of just got to feeling like I was chasing my tail in a sense because I was doing what I knew to do, and that was, write the songs you can and find the ones you can and get some product out there, put some product out there, all that shit, and it made me feel like I was chasing my tail and I wasn't being able to get my point across, so what that led to was there's some people that are out there who have been a part of my journey throughout the years who absolutely made sure that I was busy and that I could work and play shows and beer joints and dance halls and wherever they would have us, and that work really gave me more direction and insight than the time that I've had, on the road is I think what I would have to blame it all on, because some of that stuff you just don't find out anywhere else.
Yeah. One moment that was probably pretty cool for you throughout this time, getting to this record, is you were surprised by Ronnie Dunn. You ended up getting surprised by him. You also worked with him on 2 projects, Hixtape Volume 2 and his new album. What was that experience like for Ronnie?
Ronnie. It's Ronnie Dunn, Ronnie has been so good to me, and he's the coolest son bitch I ever met, man. He is exactly who he is, and I'm grateful to have gotten to work with him, and I'm grateful to call him a friend.
Yeah, that is such iconic to work with Ronnie, man. That's so cool that you guys got to do that. Really cool stuff. So let's talk about your new album. How did this album come together? Because we had mentioned there was a little bit of time in between things, so I'm really interested to hear how it all came about and what the process was like.
As I said earlier, I've always been on the road, but in between, I started finding more opportunities. We'd do a van call and work the gigs, and we drop everybody off at that central location, and I turn around and head to Nashville or Hendersonville, and I would write a lot of. I was being put in rooms, and Roger Springer is a writer that is ultimately to blame for that, and he's become family and has been a huge musical influence on me way before I met him. But I did that for a number of years. And just was writing songs, and as that kept going, more opportunities shown. But ultimately, I really don't know who or what's to blame for the fact that we got a record deal and all, but Seth England had called me in Amarillo. I was working a date with Randall King and Bree Bagwell around Christmas about 4 years ago, and he had called me, and that's really what started that whole thing. And it took about a year getting to where we're starting to move forward, and just that's it. And the thing about my process hadn't changed from the time that we got together and partnered up. The thing is we just kept writing. Some of the songs on the record were already wrote. unbeknownst, but they was already wrote a couple of years, 4 or 5 years before we even cut the record. And
Right.
I just think that's really, it's an experience that I feel grateful to have gotten to experience. But Joey Moy, who produced the record, man's one of the smartest guys that I've ever been around. And
Yeah. Dude has a catalog of just excellent work.
100%. I think that I look forward to many more years of getting to work with him. And had it not been for Big Loud and the songs and the writers on them songs, I can't say that we'd be in this position here with this record. And I'm just thankful that I was trusted to do my job, and I'm thankful that I have partners in this business that I can trust.
Shout out to Big Loud for finding you, man. They saw the talent. They knew what was coming. So shout out. I'm so happy that this worked out for you, and it truly is. It's nice and really a breath of fresh air to have this traditional sound from you again in country, and it being more accepted than ever in the past recent years. So it's incredible. The self-titled debut album from Jake Worthington. You guys have to check this thing out. Two songs off the record. What would be your favorite songs? Any of them stand out to you?
I'm pretty. I love them all. I guess that's kind of. I love my favorite track on that record is. I love State You Left Me In. I love Single at the Same Time. I love the music on Single at the Same Time. There's a lot of shuffles on it, but just as far as what went on with the band during that song, it's my favorite. It's my favorite, thing going on there. It's country music.
That's right. One last question for you, Jake, before we get you out of here. What advice would you give your younger self if you had a chance to go back now?
Don't quit.
Don't quit. Well, I think you made that happen. I think that's exactly what happened here, and it puts you right in a position to where now you're really revitalizing a part of country music that I think may have been lost for a little while, and you're putting it right back into the pocket of it all. So I thank you, man, and I'm glad this is working out the way it is. And
those are some mighty kind words, but I can't take the blame for that. I think that there's been many artists over the last good number of years that amongst the chaos of what we all know to be have happening, there's been so many talented artists that have come out making incredible records and real songs.
Absolutely.
I'm just glad that mine is in the pile.
That's right. Well, Jake, thank you for joining us today, man. It's been a pleasure to have you here on the channel, and can't wait to see what the future holds for you, brother. And again, guys, remember to check out Jake Worthington's new self-titled debut album out now. Trust me, you guys will love it. It's 13 straight amazing songs. Y'all take care.